let me introduce you to an animal so chaotic that if mischief were a sport, he'd be the undefeated, God-appointed heavyweight champion. A creature so stubborn that even the lions were like, nah, we're good. A creature built like a bowling ball stuffed with spite and duct tape. This is Stoffel. But before we get to this legendary escape artist, we have to talk about honey badgers in general. The furry little tanks the creator made on a day when he clearly said, let's have some fun. Honey badgers are the physical embodiment of I do what I want, when I want. Imagine a toddler. Now give that toddler claws like kitchen tools, the confidence of a man who's never been wrong, and the personal boundaries of a raccoon in your garbage. Congratulations. You've got a honey badger. They slap lions. They bully hyenas. They'll stare down a snake like it owes them money. This isn't bravery. It's the kind of stubbornness that, frankly, you can only get when the Lord himself stamps problem child on your forehead at birth. But all that wild energy, all that chaos, it doesn't even scratch the surface of today's star. Because Stoffel, oh sweet heavens above, Stoffel is what happens when you take a honey badger and give it ideas. Stoffel was born in the late 1990s in South Africa. He was orphaned young, which meant he never learned normal honey badger basics. Things like hunting, avoiding danger, or not picking fights with animals objectively larger than refrigerators. A brave farmer took him in and hand-raised him. And listen, raising a honey badger is like raising a chainsaw with feelings. This man deserves a medal, a vacation, and probably new furniture. Eventually, little Stoffel was brought to Moholoholo Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, where he met his lifelong caretaker and future victim of stress-related wrinkles, Brian Jones. Remember Brian? We will be discussing his suffering extensively. At first, Brian let Stoffel roam freely. A mistake, a beautiful, naive, optimistic mistake. Stoffel immediately started raiding food storages, stealing anything that looked fun, breaking into other animal enclosures, picking fights with literally every creature that dared inhale oxygen. He even broke into the lion enclosure, not once, not twice, multiple times. One time, it ended so badly, he was mauled nearly to death, then healed up, and tried it again. This is not courage, this is a cartoon character in real life. So Brian finally said, enough, and built Stoffel his own special enclosure. Cute idea, but it did not work. Because one morning, the gate is wide open, Stoffel is gone. They thought someone forgot to lock it, until it happened again, and again, and again. Eventually they realized what was happening. Stoffel was unlocking the gate, standing up on his back legs, hooking his claws, sliding the bolt open like a raccoon locksmith. So Brian added a second lock up high, and introduced a female honey badger named Hammy, hoping she'd keep him distracted. Adorable, wholesome, hopeful, and utterly another fail. Stoffel didn't get distracted, he got a partner, not the kind Brian was hoping for, a partner in crime. He taught Hammy how to escape. This became a literal two-badger jailbreak syndicate. Hammy would climb up and unlock the top lock. Stoffel would handle the lower one. Teamwork makes the dream work, especially when the dream is causing chaos. So Brian added metal wires around the locks. The badgers removed the wires, then opened the locks, then escaped. Again, this was no longer a keeper versus honey badger situation. This was Ocean's 11, but everyone is small, furry, and angry. This was also the breaking point, and it led to the greatest chapter of the entire story. Brian finally said, all right, that's it, and built what the staff proudly called Honey Badger Alcatraz. Thick concrete walls, smooth surfaces, no grip points, heavy steel gates locking from the outside. A place so secure even your teenager wouldn't be able to sneak out of it. On paper, escape-proof. In reality, Stoffel saw it as a fun little challenge. If you think this isn't the end for Stoffel, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Stoffel's first escape was almost charmingly simple. A branch from a tree inside the enclosure hung a little too close to the wall. He climbed, he jumped, he escaped. He left the staff staring like they'd just watched a magic trick. So, they chopped down every tree. Poor guy, every single tree. Problem solved, temporarily. Now deprived of trees, Stoffel had to innovate. And innovate he did. One morning, he was gone again. The staff was baffled, until Brian caught him in the act. Stoffel was flipping garden tools upright, rakes, shovels, brooms, and using them as a DIY ladder. He even used his tire toy as a step stool. This is not animal behavior. This is Home Depot energy. So they removed all tools, all toys, all objects, anything that could conceivably become a ladder. It's like going to the hole in prison. You get nothing. Problem solved again. temporarily. Stoffel then went into archaeologist mode. He dug up every medium-sized rock in his enclosure, rolled them into one corner, stacked them into a pyramid like a furry little contractor, then climbed right out. Brian said, "Okay, no more rocks," and had the staff dig up everything bigger than a pebble. Problem solved. Temporarily. At this point, I'm completely baffled why he hasn't been renamed Frank. Frank Morris would have been a much better fit than Stoffel. Comment below if you know who Frank is. And then, it rained. But the story doesn't end there, because one night, Brian awoke to the sound of breaking glass. He ran into his home, expecting burglars, only to find Stoffel inside his fridge, eating snacks like he lived there. This animal broke out of Alcatraz, then broke into the man's house. This isn't a honey badger. This is a divine prank. He rolled the wet mud into solid balls, stacked them like stepping stones, and climbed out again. This wasn't just intelligence. This was divine-level creativity. This was Bob the Builder meets jailbreak mastermind. Brian discovered the mudball staircase and simply stood there in disbelief. At this point, the staff wasn't even mad, just tired. This led to the final upgrade, overhanging metal wires, a prison roof, basically. And finally, Stoffel could no longer escape the enclosure. Poor Stoffel, his life's purpose gone. Today, Stoffel is around 28 years old, one of the oldest honey badgers ever recorded. He still lives with Hammy, his ride-or-die partner in crime. They spend most days resting, eating, and occasionally reminding everyone that yes, he once outsmarted an entire staff for years. He's a living legend, a furry little outlaw who refused to be contained. Stoffel was the icon for entrepreneurship. After everything, every escape, every lock, every ladder, every mudball masterpiece, you know what? They should have just let the poor little fella have his freedom, took him to the wild where he belonged, dumped him, and ran. Heck, he proved he could find food and fight off predators, right? He wasn't pitiful and incapable. He was Stoffel the Unstoppable. Hasta la vista, you over-enthusiastic wildlife whisperer who should probably stop trying to rehome everything with a pulse.